So, because itong social media is terra incognita. We don't really know. We just have to analyze properly. Ano ba talaga? Paano ba yung nag-operate ang ganitong medium? And also, this medium is not necessarily neutral. The kinds of interaction which are generated in Facebook or in other social media, they're also dependent on the way the platform is designed. The technological aspect of this platform is designed, for example, encourages, very rash responses, emotional kinds of statements. So it also has to do with this kind of how platforms are designed. It's not a neutral thing. Ngayon, pag pinaghanap yung mga laman ng ganitong klaseng mga sites, makita mo, it's actually not monolithic. If you look at it microscopically into these Duterte websites, Duterte supporting pages, you can see may mga away sila eh. Differences of opinion. Sometimes, for example, there's a fake news, there's a piece of fake news that they're trying to spread. Trolls, the administrator, for example, is trying to spread this kind of fake news. One specific example is during the Marawi crisis. There was a lot of attack on human rights and human rights workers at that time. So they're spreading a lot of fake news about human rights. But there were also voices of dissent in these pages. Sabihin ng iba, ate, mali naman yung balita na pinapalaganda mo eh. Hindi makakatulong sa atin kapag kinakalat niyo yung ganyang klaseng balita. Tapos may mga iba pa nga, point-by-point refutation of those things. But they're still part of that. Pro-Duterte pa rin ako. Pero hindi nakakatulong ang mga sinasabi ninyo. So if we go into a more microscopic level, looking at these kinds of discussions in Facebook, you see, it's not a monolithic thing. People question inside, and they feel that they have the right to also question these kinds of information or opinions that's being disseminated inside. So I'm not sure whether this can be effective. Kasi talagang kakaunti ang mga gumagawa niyan eh. At parang minsan kakilala magkakamag-anak, mga OFW sa mga iba't ibang bansa, ay hindi kuya, hindi tama yan, kinukorek kita ngayon. No? Ganun yung mga sinasabi nila. I know that that's effective given the kind of volume of text and data that's flooding social media. But one thing that we can do siguro is have a citizen brief that is better trained in dealing with these kinds of technology. Kasi bago yan eh. It's only natural that we have difficulties in confronting or in dealing with this kind of technology. So, halimbawa sa UP, importante yung mga estudyante, maganda yung training nila. At sa iba pang universidad, maganda yung training sa pag-detect ng fake news. Maganda yung training sa paggamit ng ganang klase mga digital platforms and digital media. Also, that they themselves help design more digital platforms which are more oriented to, constructive political dialogue and discourse. So there's also a problem of design, of structuring, that I think we have to flesh out and discuss. So tingin ko lang ay kailangan natin ng, of course, UP students and university students, they're a great minority, very small minority of our nation. Pero yung mga yan, minority na yan, they can engage in those kinds of, cracking the monolithic aspect of this massive data flow. Kaya, pero isang problema sa UP na yung nga yung aming isang discussion namin dito, yung isang makakatulong sana dito sa ganitong capacity to identify, fake news, live in this digital world, this unknown world, hindi tayo maging narrow specialists. If we just deal with our, discipline, we just care about the job that our discipline will lead to, etc. Kaya mahalaga sa UP yung aming general education program. Yung general education program namin, na nag-train yung mga tao magkaroon ng holistic perspective on society, how to live in this world, in this new world. Ang problema lang, UP has cut down its general education program from 45 units to 21 units minimum. So I think that's a wrong move. that's the wrong direction. What we need is a more generalistic perspective to deal with this new world, rather than a narrow specialism. Na yung narrow specialism niya, that leads to, this kind of lack of questioning.
What else from our speakers? Okay, we have time to collect 3 more questions. 1, 2 more, 2. 1 more question. Anybody else? 3. Yes. So the first one, can you please approach the mic? Thank you.
My name is Tom Vargas. Lately, I have noticed that there is a bigger number of intrusive email going into my email with Chinese characters. I would like to ask Maria Ressa, in your study, are you able to identify or trace the number of Chinese sites trying to get into our social network system? Thank you.
Thank you. And for the second question.
Sorry, my name is Susan Abbott, and I'm a media consultant. And my question is about regulatory responsibility. If you could talk a little bit about the regulators here, and particularly, have you gone to the tech companies? I assume you have, but can you talk a little bit about big tech and accountability, and perhaps what in the Philippines you're doing, but regionally, do you think that there's an opportunity to back in the same way that colleagues in the EU have?
And for the third question.
Good afternoon. I'm attorney Senator Oust. I'm a retired government lawyer. My question is, has media examined its role during the Marcos, compared its role during the Marcos regime and during the Duterte regime? Because from the way I look at it, at present, the media is focused on the Duterte riches, how it was able to accumulate billions through drugs. Drugs valued in billions, and we have also tried to focus on the victims. The victims are the 27,000 victims of the GK, the marginalized communities, the drug runners, and of course the media. But how about the rest of us? Do we feel victims? I myself, I don't feel victim. In fact, my retirement pay went up. And I feel I want to get involved. But the media seems to be so clueless about us Filipinos, ordinary Filipinos as victims, whereas during the Marcos regime, dissatisfaction was across the country in terms of low pay. I was in the government and my pay was always delayed. And yet you can see from the media reports the luxury enjoyed by the Marcoses. So, and then the joblessness. So Senator Ople had to invent that OFW program, which broke up families. And in fact, at the beginning, the OFW program was considered immoral by the church because it broke up families. It was only lately that families were also included in the OFW program. So, what are you going to do about making us feel also victims of this drug thing. Because some of us, many of us feel that, like the taxi driver, we're not really involved, we're not victims. In fact, we feel safe. So, can you focus on that? What is the value? 2 billion value of drugs. Are we victims of that? Have we paid? Have we paid the equivalent of how many? 50,000 to the 2 billion that the Dutertes have accumulated? No. But I cannot explain how they became rich from these drugs because I don't buy drugs. But has media been able to trace the victims among ordinary Filipinos?
Thank you. So we have 3 questions. The first is specific to Ma'am Maria Ressa, if you were able to see any Chinese websites hacking into the Philippine government websites. Is that the question? Or a presence of Chinese websites doing hacking operations. Second would be to answer if there is any regional or national regulatory workings in terms of big tech, similar to EU developments. Third would be, I guess, to challenge media to be more reflexive in its role in engaging the public, to be more active citizens in comparison to the Marcos regime. Who would like to go first?
Tom, so the intrusive email. So we've actually found some of the website, the URLs that's part of the propaganda network, what we're calling the disinformation networks. We found some of those started with Chinese characters, and we've reported some of this stuff. But here's the main one. You can trace IP addresses, and I'll point you towards Altermedia, Bulatlat, Kodao. These groups were taken down by DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service. That just means that, you know, if you have a website, you pound for requests the website to the point that it collapses. So it's like overloading it, right? And what they found, working with an international group, they found that the source of the attack was a company in the Philippines that had links to China, if I remember this correctly. But you can look this up. So they filed a case here in the Philippines against that. So that's the DDoS attacks. On Rappler, we have been subjected to attacks. Our goal is always never to go down, right? So if they try another attack, we strengthen. You just have to strengthen your technical capacity so that you're not vulnerable. The regulatory responsibility, it's a great question, and I think what you need to look at is that the Philippines is the tip of the arrow in this global battle for truth. Right? If you look at the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where it was a company that Facebook that admitted essentially that they were manipulating people. The country with the largest number of compromised accounts was the United States. The country with the second largest number of compromised accounts, meaning they took our data and then manipulated, could have used it, was the Philippines. Second largest number. What's happening with this? Facebook, I will say, has done at least 3 takedowns in the Philippines. The first was in October, the second in January. In January, they took down a very extensive network, maybe 20% of the propaganda machinery. It was connected to Twin Mark Media and was connected to some of the candidate pages later on. Well, we discovered they were connected later on. The third one, in March, they actually named the network it was connected to, and it was connected to a man named Nick Gabunada, who ran the social media campaign team of then Mayor Duterte, right? So you can kind of see Facebook taking action. Regulatory responsibility, I don't really think government should be. I prefer we push the social media platforms to take action because, if you watch the congressional hearings in the United States when Mark Zuckerberg testified in 2018, it was scary how little the legislators knew. This one, take it off, but Warren Hatch asking how did Facebook make money, right? So there were things like that. So if you have regulators who don't understand the technology, trying to regulate it, then you can lose the potential of that technology for empowerment. The reason I work with Facebook, the reason Rappler continues to work with Facebook is Rappler couldn't have existed without Facebook. I drank the Kool-Aid. I know that it can be used for good. We know this, right? And if they can clean it up, if they can have the right, if they can keep the facts, if they can be true gatekeepers, because they've taken the gatekeeping power away from journalists and news organizations, but they've allowed lies to spread faster than facts. So if they can fix that, and that is the immediate short-term fix, then we can use it for good again. And in countries like the Philippines, where institutions are extremely weak, we need that kind of empowerment. And then finally, I think the last question is, it's really scary to look at some of the legislative attempts in Southeast Asia. Singapore's latest fake news law is cautionary. And then if you look at where the World Press Freedom Index in 2019, where is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations? We're at the bottom. And the country that is, that's done the best of all of us is Malaysia, with a man, the election of Prime Minister Mahathir, who was kicked out in 2004 for being a dictator style, and now he is the Democrat coming back in, right? It's a very interesting time. Where's the Philippines? We dropped yet again one more rank in the World Press Freedom Index. So it's not a good time to be a journalist. Some people will say because you face cases, you face intimidation, you face harassment, and this goes to anyone who is online. But I would say there is no better time to be a journalist because this is the time that the mission becomes even more important. And if we work with our communities, we can define what the future will look like. We cannot do this alone. We cannot do it without tech. And then I'll say one last thing, and this is, if you look on my Twitter feed, I just tweeted a story from San Fernando, Cebu. It's the latest of Patricia Evangelista. It actually shows you how rule of law is essentially demolished, right? That the words of power gives free rein for impunity to violence. And this is a story that is also connected with Facebook because this is a kill list of 6 local politicians. 4 of them are now dead. 1 is injured. 1 is in hiding. All of this took place in the last 3 months. 1 of the dead reported there was a kill list on Facebook. So we looked at that Facebook group. There was violent content there, including credible threats, drug tagging, red tagging, bullying, the celebration of murder, and it correlated to deaths on the ground in San Fernando, Cebu since January. We asked Facebook to comment. They said they previously removed some reported content. They suspended the group for investigation on April 26th, and they permanently removed the group for all these violations on May 4th. We have to do more of that. We have to report it. You cannot hide. Online violence leads to real-world violence, and the impunity happens in the real world with real power using that, and in the virtual world. We need to protect ourselves.
Thank you. Can we hear from Attorney Saguisag?
Well, let me just address what I thought, what I understood when it was done in the beginning, and certain of the responses. Number 1, for China, I think Duterte, after shaking hands with the Prime Minister Xi, should count his fingers. And like Virgil in Aeneid, saying, I fear the Greeks, even if they come bearing gifts. In Indonesia, Premier Widodo appointed a woman Minister of Fisheries, Susi, who beginning 2016 has blown up hundreds of foreign vessels straying into the sea, including one clearly Chinese and many others that are really owned by the Chinese. In other words, puso, which we need to show, like Vietnam, which has defeated France, the US in 1979, there was a border war, 30,000 were killed. But the Chinese are not able to enter. In this country, 44 killed in Masapano, and up to now the whaling hasn't stopped. But no one has mentioned about the Muslim victims, including Sarah, 5 years old, killed, parents wounded. In other words, we really need to be doing something about what Maribel Onfin identified as the sinicization of, in our barangay Palanan, there's a new Chinese resto with no sign in Filipino or English. So I think we are close to becoming, without our knowing it, the 24th province of China. And I also dread the creeping militarization of the cabinet. And so many former generals now in the civilian cabinet, making a mockery of civilian supremacy over the military. So perhaps I can only conclude quoting Ted Kennedy in 1980, that for those whose cares have been our concern, the word goes on, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die. So, my friends, may we never cease to dream.
To the question of Susan on regulatory preparation. During, I think was it last year that Senator Grace Poe conducted a hearing on, because there was, I think, Senator Villanueva introduced a bill to regulate social media. Most of the resource persons, VERA has taken the position that we are against additional regulation of media because we believe that there are enough existing laws to discipline discipline whatever abuses there is in social media. We have the revised penal code, we have the libel law, and we have the cyber crime, we have the